Welcome back to another episode of Navigate, a podcast designed to help take some of that guesswork out of transition. And I'm your host, Tim Austin, and today we'll be reflecting on one of the main ways we stay grounded and purposeful in transition seasons. That's not always easy because transition seems to mess with something, and that something is called identity. But by leaning into a process of discovery and with a posture of surrender, we can discover and embrace our true identities and live with greater purpose and fulfillment, even through the uncertainty and ambiguity of change. And that's really good news. So let's dive in. When can I meet with God? Was a cry of one of the sons of Korah in Psalm 42. You can read that chapter and you can hear his cry and his thirst for God. I can guarantee when the writer penned those words, he wasn't looking at his watch when he penned those words. He was reflecting on the condition of his soul. How do you sustain and nourish your own soul while trying to reach both personal and professional or ministry goals? The balance between being and doing is a delicate one. But one thing we know for sure, meeting with God is the source of fruitful undertaking. Our life purpose is grounded in relationship, and a healthy identity is rooted in that. However, in transition, we can succumb to what I call identity amnesia. We forget who we are at the core. My personal experience living and working cross-culturally for so many years has highlighted this for me. My early years in Central Asia were heavily focused on tangible results. I thought I was fulfilling my purpose by doing things for God. And my sense of identity was connected mostly to the work that I was doing. My identity somewhat unraveled when I transitioned because the assignment was terminated. Or at least I thought it was. I searched for ways to regain a sense of purpose through other areas of focus, such as coaching, pastoring, even podcasting, writing. Ultimately, I failed, and a perceived loss of identity coupled with a desire to realign with what really mattered, that began to motivate me to pursue more of a with God posture. Something that Skye Jethani talks about in his book called With, which is a good read, by the way. I desperately needed to focus on sustainability and the long game rather than productivity and checking things off the list. I needed rhythms and routines which grounded me in my true identity. Purposeful doing could then flow out of that, and that's the journey I'm still navigating, and probably it will continue to be a journey I navigate. Don't get me wrong, purposeful work is part of our callings, but certainly not the foundation. The bedrock is relationship. Embodied in this cry, going back to Psalms 42, verse 2, my soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When can I go and meet with God? And so my prayer has become, Lord, may I prioritize meeting with you over and above my assignment for you. May what I do flow out of a well of identity and purpose grounded in this relationship. Skye Jethani continues to make his point in using the Apostle Paul as an example. And he says this, the Apostle Paul understood that his calling to be a messenger to the Gentiles was not the same as his treasure to be united with Christ. His communion with Christ rooted and preceded his work for him. One invitation in transition is to partner with God in order to create an environment or an ecosystem, if you will, of sustainability. We resist identity amnesia with routines and rhythms that remind us of who we are. We see God establishing some of these rhythms and routines for the Israelites as they came out of slavery and into their desert wanderings. At least he made every offer and invitation to them to remind them of who they were. We need to refuse to let transition rob us of a grounded sense of self. So we need to tap into new and improved sources. We dig new wells in transition seasons. The Message version of Psalm 42, verses 1 to 3, is a great launching point for reflection. A white-tailed deer drinks from the creek. I want to drink God, deep draughts of God. I'm thirsty for God alive. I wonder, will I ever make it? Arrive and drink in God's presence? I'm on a diet of tears, tears for breakfast, tears for supper. All day long, people knock at my door, pestering, "Where is this God of yours?" Noticing the deep longing in the psalmist, notice his cry, notice his complaint. Think of a time when you were extremely parched. How desperate did you feel for a drink? What might you have done to go to get that drink? Have you ever felt that desperate for God? Think about what that intense longing is like for you. Genesis 26 paints a picture of Isaac the well digger. His survival and the survival of his flocks and his family depended on having wells wherever he went. So he dug wells. He protected his wells. If one dried up, he dug another. What are some wells which have dried up for you in this transition season, and why? And could this actually be a gift and an invitation to create new wells to sustain you moving forward? How and where could you dig some new wells in this season of transition? Wells that lend themselves to deeper encounters with God and a grounding in your true identity. Let's face it, transitions have a way of messing with our sense of identity, purpose, and calling. But at the same time, transitions can be a wonderful opportunity to reorient ourselves to what really matters and to begin to engage a process of discovery. It's also a time to engage a process of discernment. It's perfect for setting aside time to discern and discover the new things taking shape in our heads and our hearts, to engage a process of shedding the lies and embracing the truth about ourselves and God. As a helpful tool to gain clarity, you can download my free discernment guide. Just head over to the show notes and you'll find the link there. Then let me encourage you to carve out some space to sit with the questions, either just on your own or with a trusted friend, counselor, or guide, and begin to ask, what's the new I'm being invited into? What's the new I'm being invited to create in partnership with God? This is an exciting season. Let's flip the narrative to something positive when we look at transition. And let me encourage you to do that with intentionality. Well, that's all for today's episode of Navigate. Thank you for joining us on this journey of embracing change with fresh eyes of intentionality. If you've enjoyed listening, can I encourage you to take a minute and leave a rating or review on your favorite listening platform? That would really help. And let's have a conversation. Partner with me to discover and create a sustainable process to center life around what truly matters. If you'd like to learn more about the coaching services I offer, head over to EncompassLifeCoaching.com and then book your complimentary discovery call with me. I'll catch you next time.